Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. Today, we're going to talk about graded video games. Now, if you guys recall, when I first started this channel, I did a lot of videos on the vintage video game collectible marketplace, the graded video game marketplace, and I gave you all my thoughts. You guys can go back and watch those videos as to why I caution a lot of people from getting into this market from a speculative buying standpoint. Now, if you're somebody out there that has a lot of these items, you've been collecting them for years, now's a great time to sell, in my opinion. I'm selling into the market. I know a lot of people that are selling into the market. I have a lot of clients coming to me right now that want to sell into this market. It is something that is extremely speculative at present time. But the one thing I want to talk about is, if you guys recall, it was literally over a year ago, I did a video about the wonderful $100,000 sticker-sealed first edition Super Mario Brothers game graded by WATA in 9.4 condition that sold for $100,000. And it was just a very, very kind of shady sale, in my opinion. It was sold through Heritage Auctions, but the people that bidded on it, it was kind of an inside job. Let me just state that. Full disclosure, it was a little shady in my opinion. Well, ironically, today, as we prepare to enter the year 2021, we actually have a video game that surpassed that sale. Believe it or not, Super Mario Brothers 3, graded by WATA Games in 9.2, which is a first production edition of this game in factory sealed condition. And how we know this is, it has the word brothers, B-R-O-S period, on the left side of the game box. Just sold on November 20th of this year, 2020, through Heritage Auctions for $156,000, which includes the 20% buyer's premium that Heritage charges. So let me state that again. We now have a copy of Super Mario Brothers 3, graded by WATA Games, which is a known first production edition in 9.2 condition with an A+ seal rating, selling for $156,000. Now, a lot of people are reaching out to me, Sean, what do you think of this sale? Sean, does that change anything? Sean, does that change your perspective on video games? No, guys, it doesn't change my perspective on the whole wonderful graded vintage video game phenomenon that we're seeing. Video games right now are still extremely speculative. So is Pokemon, so is Magic the Gathering. A lot of you reach out and you always ask, Sean, why are they speculative? The answer, I'm going to give it to you right here again, comes down to the fact that it takes decades for a collecting hobby or a collecting market to stabilize. And that's when you can start to analyze the market for the long term. Video games, it's true. People have been collecting video games for decades now. Okay, I'm going to give it to you straight. But unfortunately, there was a catalyst in that market through video game grading, through the advent of WATA Games, that changed that market fundamentally. It's no different. A lot of you guys think that I'm biased towards collectibles and I love antiques. That's not 100% true. But the thing that I can compare this to is, if we go back to the 1980s and we look at rare coin grading, when coin grading became a thing, that market, the whole rare coin marketplace back in the 1980s, went into a massive speculative boom. So if I was a lot older than what I am today, and I was like in my 20s and 30s back in the 1980s, and I was investing in that market, I would have pulled out because it would have been too speculative. And ironically, if you look back on history, if you were a coin collector in the 1980s with the advent of coin grading, you know what the best course of action you could have took during that particular decade, the 1980s all the way up to the 1990s? Not buy a single coin. Do you know why? Because most people that bought into that speculative frenzy, literally prices have never been that high before in the history of rare coins. Most coins that sold during that time frame, most, not all, were selling for a substantial premium that even if you held those coins to today, the year 2020, going into the year 2021, if you were to sell them at auction, you would take a loss without even factoring in the cost of inflation and the time value of your money, where if you would have put it in an S&P 500 index fund. And I'm stating that out of 100% honesty because you guys know I love investing in rare coins. I love investing in rare banknotes. But it doesn't change the facts as to how that market was massively manipulated and speculative. If we look at it now from 2020 hindsight, pun intended, because it is the year 2020, looking back to the 1980s and seeing how it played out. The same thing, in my opinion, is going to happen with a lot of these collecting hobbies, whether we're talking about video games, Pokemon cards, Magic the Gathering. It is incredibly hard to predict where these markets are going to go over the long term. Anybody and their mother can look at some of these markets and go, hey, that guy has a first edition factory sealed booster box of holo cards or whatever. Of course, over the next couple of months, that's probably going to go up in value because right now Pokemon is in a bubble. So a lot of people can analyze these markets from the standpoint of short-term gains. The problem is, if you're coming into these markets and you want to park $250,000 in these markets and you want to hold these items for 10 to 20 years, in my opinion, that's inherently risky because markets in the antiques and collectibles trade change over time. And it's the long game that most people don't recognize how much these markets change. In the short term, people are always going to conduct business, meaning there's always going to be buying and selling opportunities. I'm not attacking any of my fellow speculators out there. I'm not attacking any of my people that are operating in these markets from a short-term time horizon. What I am criticizing when I do these videos is the person that comes into a market like this says, oh, look at this, a Super Mario Brothers 3, WATA graded 9.2, first production game for $156,000. I'm going to buy that. I'm going to invest in it. We're going to see what the market does long term. That, in my opinion, is Timmy thinking. And it's sad to say, a lot of the people that are engaging in that type of buying, they have the money to do so, number one. And number two, they're going to most likely be engaged in market manipulation at that point because they already have $156,000 to play in that high-end pool. It's just like I get into arguments all the time with people in the comment section of my videos. Sean, you're not calculating the fact that somebody might want to just pay $150,000 for a Pokemon card or a video game because they want to own it. I'm sorry, guys. I am a consultant in the antiques and collectibles trade. I have clients that come to me with net worths of 10, 20, and $30 million. Now, it's rare to have somebody with that type of net worth. But when they come to me, you know the first thing that they say to me? Sean, I'm putting my money in this item because I want to preserve capital. Meaning, they're not buying it out of emotion. They're not parking $1, $5, or $10 million in a rare painting saying, hey, I'm okay if that rare painting, or in this case, that rare video game, or that rare Pokemon card goes down in value. Says no one who is educated in economics and finance. When I go to the rare coin marketplace, I don't go, hey, cool, I'm going to buy this coin for $5,000 and go, oh, I don't care if it goes down in value. Of course I care. These markets are primarily dominated by both collectors and investors. You have to decide what you are. Are you a collector? Are you a speculator? Or are you an investor? If you want to be an investor, that's what this channel helps develop within you. I teach the basics, the fundamentals of the antiques and collectibles trade that are missing on so much of these hype-driven forums, so much of these other hype-driven YouTube channels. I want you guys to know the truth. For instance, I'm going to repeat this, and I've said this many times before. Over the long term, putting your money in something like an S&P 500 index fund or a total stock market index fund has garnished an annual return of 7%. If you cannot beat 7% investing in the antiques and collectibles trade, you really need to analyze what you are doing in these markets from a financial standpoint. Now, there are people out there, and again, we're going to get into this in other videos, that want to diversify away from Wall Street and the financial markets, and that's why they come into these markets. Unfortunately, a lot of the people on the lower end side of the trade, meaning your average person that makes $50,000 a year or less, only has one income stream, when they invest in these markets, they're doing it solely as an investment. They're convincing themselves in their mind that all these items go up in value over the long term. That is patently false. And I'm trying to break you guys of that habit. So we're going to answer the question that was posed at the beginning of this video. What do I think of this sale? I think the sale is what it is. It'll be interesting to see what happens if more of these items are located, graded, and brought to market. I don't think this was a very good investment, in my opinion, for a 9.2 copy to sell for $156,000, regardless of the fact that it is a first production game. I could be wrong on that over the long term. I don't know. But this market is incredibly speculative. Be careful out there, guys. Believe me. Stay safe in these markets. Know what you're doing. Only buy what you can afford to buy. Do not bet the farm. Do not mortgage your house. Do not pimp out your girlfriend. Do not pimp out your boyfriend. Do not do anything crazy to get these items. These markets will change over the next 10, 20 years. Mark my words. And in some ways, they will change better. And in some ways, they will change for the worse. Time will tell. It always does. Thanks for watching.